Hello everyone, this is Enormous with TekDefense, and today on TekTip episode 26, we're going to go over Recon-ng. TekTip is brought to you by SANS.org, the most trusted source for information security training and certification. Use code SecureAbit_Tech5 at checkout to get 5% off any SANS course in any format. For a full listing of all the courses available, go to SANS.org. Alright everybody, before delving into Recon-ng, I just wanted to go over a couple quick announcements. The first of which is you'll notice that we are now sponsored by SANS.org, and you can use SecureAbit_Tech5 for as a code to get 5% off any SANS course. This is done through a partnership that we have with the SecureAbit team, so make sure you're checking them out as well. In addition to that, some big news with Automator last week was on the 22nd, Automator was added to Kali. So if you're running Kali at home, the new backtrack, then simply apt-get update, apt-get install Automator, and you'll be ready to roll. And the usage is a little different, right? You don't have to call it like you don't have to, Python Automator with it on Kali. In fact, all you have to do is in any directory, because it's installed to the bin directory, which is in the path. So you just call Automator just like this, give it a source or a target, and it'll get rolling and doing its thing. And of course, that works with a URL as well. Right. So there you go. I just wanted to show you that. Big news for us. It's a really exciting time having our tool that we've created make it to the premier distro for pen testing is awesome. So let's move on to what today's topic is going to be, though, and that's Recon-ng. So Recon-ng, created by Landmaster53, Tim Toombs, however you say that. It is created to be a framework for reconnaissance for the information gathering phase of your pen test, right? So like we have Metasploit for exploits, and we have the social engineering toolkit for social engineering attacks. Recon is a framework to bring in all of those techniques into one tool to help you gather information about your targets and do full recon of your target before getting to the point where you want to social engineer them or exploit their networks. So this is written to in a fashion that makes it feel very much like Metasploit. So if you're used to Metasploit, you'll have a good time here. And the way it's created, being as modular as it is, it's very easy to add your own code to this. So if you're familiar with Python, this is all written in Python. You can quickly write a module to scrape the site of your choosing for particular information. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here, and let's get into it. I should mention before we go on that the usage guide and the development guide are pretty darn awesome. So from his Bitbucket site, and I'll have all the links on TekDefense.com. The user guide gets you started with the installation, so I'm not even going to bother going over installation here, but basically you're just going to clone that Git repository, and once it's cloned, you can launch it. It has all the third-party dependencies, the libraries included with it, so you don't have to install them separately on your own. So you're good there, but then it gives you some tips and tricks on how to use it, and of course, if you want to create something using the framework, add a module to it, you can do so here. And as you can see, when we go back here, it's updated pretty frequently. I mean, it's getting pulls quite frequently here. But anyways, let's get to Recon-ng. So let's maximize this out. Let's make the screen a little bigger. That might be too big. So let's see. And I just threw it in opt Recon-ng, Recon-ng, and alright, so once you're here, you're just going to launch the Python script as such, and you'll see you're in a console that's, again, very similar to Metasploit. So if you're used to using Metasploit, you're going to have a good time here. So to quickly show you, some of the options, you can do a help, and it's going to give you what options you have. And I'm going to quickly just walk through what these are and what they do for you. The back self-explanatory. Banner is just going to display what you see here. Exit will bring you back just like back will. Help shows what we see here. Info will give you information about a particular module once we have a module loaded. Load and use will navigate to the particular module that we want to use and allow us to set the options for it. Query, so everything that you're doing here when you're doing your recon is going to end up in a database. So as you identify hosts, it's going to end up in the database, which you can then query that database to see information in there. So if there's contacts, there's hosts, and so on. And if you want to see the structure of the database, I'll show you how to do that using the show command in a bit. The record command lets us record the commands that we're running and then replay them at a later time. So it's a quick way to make a script. If, say, you want IPs to be treated a certain way every time, you can create a resource script for an IP and it'll run the particular tool sets that you've specified. Reload is used mainly for development purposes. So if I want to reload the framework because I wrote a new module for it and I want to see how it interacts as I'm updating the code, I use that. Resource is what we were talking about with the record function. So using the resource, we can command, we can specify a resource file and have it run the commands within that resource file. Run, once we choose a module that we want, we set the options. That's how we launch the module, by typing run. Search does what it sounds like it does. Set here will allow us to set the global options. Shell is a way to launch commands outside of this Python framework, but you don't really have to worry about typing it unless the command is the same as a command within the framework. So, for instance, if I just wanted to do ifconfig, I could do that here without having to put shell before it because there's no conflicting command. Show, this will let us show various different options and or various different things depending on the secondary option we use. And use, as we said before, is the same as load. So quickly, I'm going to start off with the show command, and by tabbing, which you can do throughout this framework, you can see what you can show based on what you've been doing here. So I'm just going to quickly show you the schema, which is going to give you an understanding of how the database is laid out. So as you are identifying stuff with these different modules, they're going to be dumped into these tables: host, contacts, creds, and dashboards, and they all do what they sound like they do. But if you wanted to say query, which now we're telling it we're going to do SQL, and you could do a standard SQL query, select all from host, it's now going to show us all the hosts that we've identified as we've been using the tool so far. This is all based on the particular workspace we're in. So if we do this again, you'll see show workspaces. And we only have one, but say you were doing a reconnaissance test or a pen test, and you had one for one company, one for another company that you're doing, and you wanted to spread that out. You can have a workspace for each, and all it does really is just create another directory under the workspaces directory, keeping everything separated out and giving it its own database and so on. So before getting into the modules and stuff, let's go ahead and quickly, I believe it is set, yeah. So if I type set, it's going to show us what options are available at a global level, because we're at the global level right now. We're not in a particular module. So here I could fill in a company or a domain, and when I get to any of the modules, it's going to pull from this directly unless I otherwise specify using the set command within the module. In addition to that, if you have some API keys for the particular services that are in there, there's some that require an API key to use. You could have a point to the database where you're keeping those and add to that database. If you want to use a proxy, you can. This is the resource file we were talking about previously. The user agent is going to use when it's doing HTTP related stuff. The verbose settings for the logging, and what workspace you want to use. So these are global options that you can set. And as you can see, I just gave me a company of, in fact, I don't know why I put google.com. Let's do set. To change any of these, you type set, the name of what you're trying to do, and then the variable you want to give it. So Google. So now if we do set again, you'll see the company name is Google, not google.com. So that's how you set the global options. And obviously, if you're doing a pen test for a particular company, that company's name would be here, that company's main domain would be here. But, this is the global options. This is a good framework, but with the power of this is all the different modules that are introduced. So let's show you some of those. So I believe I can do a show modules. Yes. So if I do show modules, you'll see they're separated out into 3 different categories. We have the discovery category, recon, and reporting. Discovery is set for your passive reconnaissance tools, so things that, for instance, are going to search, go to Google and search for TekDefense to find any email addresses associated with TekDefense, versus going directly to the TekDefense website and looking at those. Now, recon, conversely, is more active, right? So that's like a port scan, or like I was just saying, going directly to TekDefense to regex for some particular email addresses or whatever pattern we happen to be looking for. And then reporting is what it sounds like. Once you're done, you want to generate a report off of everything that you've gathered. That's where you're going to do it. So I will say that for the most part, these are separated accordingly, but I've seen a few in here that I'm not sure why they would be in recon and not discovery. For instance, the URL void one, I'm not going directly to the website there. There's a few of them where I could make the argument that they belong in discovery, not in recon. So yeah, but it doesn't really matter. They're all the tools are there. So let me just walk through a couple of them really quick to show you some of the ones that are particularly useful. So let's start off in discovery. So this is how we're going to navigate to the particular modules. We're going to use the load or the use command, and then type the name of the module, and we can tab it out as we're going through, right? An interesting file. So when we are at a module, so we're in a module right now, if we type info, it's going to give us a little bit of information about this. So it's going to give us the name, who wrote it, a description. So this one checks host for interesting files and predictable locations. And then it's going to show you what options there are. So download is currently set to true, and it's required. And the source is pulling from the database currently, but we could give it a different source. So if we wanted to give it a source of securebit.com is some other URL, we could set the source individually right here. And as you see, this is also a required option. So let's go ahead and show you what it does. So I'm not going to set anything differently here, but if I was, say I wanted to change a source, I would set the source to something. and then it would be and then that would be the source that we run it against. But I like how the options are laid out right now, so I'm just going ahead and type run. And what it's going to do is going to run it against every entry in our database. And this one particularly is just going looking for what it considers interesting files, so your robots, and you can see the direction it's taking here, the same ones over and over against each of these domains. So this is going to take a little bit because I have a few things in the host directory, so I'm going to go ahead and pause until this is finished. Okay, so rather than have that continue to run, I just went ahead and canceled it real quick. And Control-C will stop the module from running and bring you back to where you were. Now, we're done with this module. We want to go to a different module. So what I'm going to do is type the back command, which will bring me back to the root of this framework. So now let's do a couple other ones. So let's do use or load recon host gather HTTP Google. That's a good one. And let's do info here again. So this one is Google hostname enumerator, created by Landmaster53 as well. And this one will harvest hosts from Google by using the particular search operators. And yeah, so let's go ahead right now. Our domain is set to TekDefense.com. If we wanted to set that to something else, we could set domain securabit.com. And we'll go ahead and do that for this one and type run. And you'll see that it's going to go ahead and search Google for any particular results in relation to SecureBit to determine if there's any subdomains that we should be aware of. And I'm going to pause again while I continue searching. Okay, so we're back, and you can see we found 3 total hosts found, and that's 3 new hosts because we didn't have any of them previously. So if we wanted to see those entries now in the database, we could use that query command that we showed before and select all from host. And now you can see we've added a few new entries. And you'll notice that the rest of the information is not populated, and that's because we haven't run the modules that would gather this type of information yet. So once we do, that information will be populated here. So let's go ahead and do the back command again. And let's go on to another one. Let's use one that takes a look at Twitter. So let's do, I believe it is recon host gather HTTP Twitter. Yeah, there we go. Gather. Is it not Twitter? Let's see where that one is again. Okay, so recon goes gather. Where is my Twitter one here? Okay, there it is. Okay, so let's do load recon contacts gather HTTP Twitter. Okay, there you go. So info on this one, and you see this one was created by Robert Frost. It searches Twitter for users that were mentioned or mentioned by a particular given handle. The default handle is Landmaster53's own Twitter account. So let's go ahead and set that to something else. Let's set it to our own. So set handle at TekDefense, and then let's run. So now it's going to search Twitter to see people I've mentioned and then people who have mentioned me. So there you go. You can see a little bit about who people are talking back and forth with, and of course that gives us some great detail in a information gathering from an information gathering perspective. All right, let's do a couple more, maybe one or two. Let's just do load recon host enum http GeoIP and host IP. I don't think this one requires an API key. And let's quickly do an info on this one again. And this one's created by WNMS53, and it's going to use hostip.info to locate host by IP address. So it's going to try to give us a geo location based on the IP addresses. The current value, as you can see, is database. That means it's going to pull from our host table, so we don't have to put the source in manually. Let's hit run and let it do its thing. So you can see it's going through and GeoIPing each of our IPs. And now we'll know where every one of those are geolocated. And we'll just do one more just to round it out, as we're getting a little late in the video now. So let's go back and let's load recon host enum http server enum and info here. Alright, so on this one we see what it's going to do is just try to determine response headers and stuff like that for whatever host we give it. And let's go ahead and say set host, and we'll just make this one ourselves here. So TekDefense.com and run. So now it's going to give us a little bit of detail about that that we can then further use for our pen test. So while this is all great information, these are probably tools that you've used before just outside of the framework. It brings it all into one framework where we can now report on it pretty easily. So let's show that next. So back, and let's go do the reporting one. So load reporting, and there's two options here, CSV and HTML, and we'll just go HTML because it looks better. And see what options we have available. So the company name is the default name for the report, so let's just go ahead and change that to set company TekDefense, and everything else is good. So let's go ahead and run that, and you'll see we have a report generated at default workspace's default workspace, and then results.html. And I believe I already have this up from earlier, and I'll just refresh this. And you can see it'll show all the modules we ran, how many times we run them, the number of hosts we were able to pull, contacts, and creds, all based on the modules we were using. And then it gives us a table with all that stuff. So pretty good stuff. And of course, if we pulled contacts or creds, it would show us those as well. But in this case, we did not. So let's go back over to the framework itself and press back. So that shows the basics of the framework. But the power of this is obviously, right, you don't want to have to load this module, run this, load this module, run this. If you go back to that help command and see that record, what you should really do is say you have a list of IPs or a list of domains or a list of Twitter accounts or a list, make all these different use case scenarios for yourself, and then record the steps that you would take for those. So once you record those commands, you can then use the resource command or attack R when you're loading up Recon-ng itself, and it'll run all those commands against whatever you have set it to run against. I'm not going to bother showing you that now. That'll probably be a follow-on video, but that's what you want to do, is establish what modules you like to use for whatever you have, and then take it from there. So you can script this all out, give it a file of IPs, and then take it from there. Beyond that, I think that is it. Let me run through these and make sure there's nothing I missed. I think that covers the framework and what I wanted to show for it today. I didn't show the search functionality. There's not a lot of modules or too many modules right now, so it's pretty easy to find what you wanted. But for instance, when I was looking for that Twitter one, I could have simply searched Twitter and it's going to show me any of the modules that have Twitter in its name. So, yeah, I think that covers it for today. Thank you for watching. Like always, you can reach me at the common methods: email, YouTube, comments on TekDefense, and Twitter. In addition to that, I'll be starting a show up with the SecureBit folks starting in April, where I'll be doing shorter formatted versions of what you see here. Just a single technique or tool on a weekly basis. So be on the lookout for that. The first tool that we're going to go over there is Network Miner, and we're going to show how to carve out EXEs from a PCAP using Network Miner. So yeah, that should be fun. The show will be called TekTip, and look forward to seeing that one. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in.